All right. Hello. What's up, ORM world? My name is Rich Ryan. Joining me today is Lauren Weeks, two-time champion at Hyrox and Hyrox world record holder. Lauren, thanks for popping on to check out this European Championships today. How are
No,
things?
I'm super excited. I was going to watch it anyway, so now I get to talk about it and watch it.
Exactly. And that's how I figured I was going to watch it to get through. Anyway, so just for everybody tuning in, we are working on a cameraman for the actual event. There's been a little bit of wires that were crossed, and we haven't been able to connect with anybody that's on site. The women's race is going to start in about 2 minutes. Usually these races are very prompt. And so we'll try to catch the results as they come in and maybe get the Hyrox World live stream going on here, and we can just kind of commentate on how everybody's doing and what to really kind of look at. So, Lauren, when you look at this women's field, what stands out to you? We have 7 of the top 15 current times in the world right now in this race. So in terms of talent, it's certainly deep. But what's one thing that stands out to you the most? What are you most excited about watching here?
It's definitely a deep race. I'm really excited to see how one of our American contenders does up against the Europeans. So that's what I'm most excited about because we've seen Tara race recently. And I think it'll be helpful for us to gauge where the European women are at based off of her performance against theirs.
And that's one thing that I think is going to be a through line through our conversation is the difference between the European times and courses and the United States based courses. Like there seems to be some time discrepancy, especially if you are a US based racer where you're like, those courses they seem fast. So we'll see exactly how those things do stack up, and if it does matter with Tara Jackson, who is currently, I think, has the 13th fastest time in the world right now, and she was finished in the top 10 at the North American Championship. So it's going to be great to see her out there. But we also have Viola Oberlinder, who is the fastest current time in the world. Going against one of the brightest young stars that we have here, who is Mirjam. And I'm going to have to go ahead and say that we're not going to pronounce all these names correct right from the jump. We're just going to let everybody know. All right. So Mirjam van Roer, who is a Swiss athlete, who is a really strong CrossFit athlete and who has beaten Viola head to head this year. So that's going to be really fun to see how that how they come back together and what kind of race they're really having. So, well,
What do you beat her recently too? Like it's only a couple weeks ago that she beat her.
And they both mentioned they had COVID at least somewhat recently.
Yeah, so I think Viola had it a couple weeks ago, and it sounds like Mirjam just had it. So I went to go look. She qualified for the quarterfinals. I wanted to see how her first day scores were. She didn't sign up for it.
So she didn't even do it.
She didn't do it. Not according to what I've found, at least. So she was potentially sick enough to not want to do 2 events and pull a Rachel.
Right, Rachel 2 in one day. Yeah. So yeah, she finished 54th. You said in the CrossFit Open worldwide.
Worldwide, which is huge. Like that's second page, like almost first page. That's pretty incredible.
When you're in that mix, you're probably have games athletes on either side of you, like right, like.
Oh, she beat a ton of games athletes. Yeah. She beat a ton.
So she certainly has a talent for fitness. So we'll see how it all comes together now. Do you know much about her in terms of a runner, like what her background is?
I don't know her background. I know I've looked into her run times, like in the splits. That's the only thing I could find on her from her previous Hyrox race. And they weren't anything insane. She was consistent. Like she never fell off. She didn't go out too hot, and she didn't have like a really slow last final 1,000, but her stations they're strong. So she's young. She's very strong. I think she's still a teenager. She's 19.
Oh, wow.
So she's got a lot of years.
So in a championship race like this, you personally have competed in 2 to 3, actually, what would you say, like 5 different championship races, including 2 US championships, 2 world type championships, and like the invitational, right? So you've gone into some big Hyrox races, and you're probably as experienced as anyone in this sport that's 4 years old, right? So what are things to look out for these athletes who might be a little bit less experienced coming into a race that is going to be this competitive? Someone like Mirjam, who is going to go up against Sarah Cote and Viola Oberlander, who do have a lot more big race experience. Like, what are some things that you'd want to be on the lookout for?
I like to see who's also in the race because everybody has a different type of race strategy and they attack a race differently. So I want to know when I'm going into it who's going to be pushing it hard from the beginning and who I need to know, like, okay, it's okay. Like, they're going to be really good at this point. Let them go. Because if you try and keep up, you're going to die out and you won't have anything at the end. So that's the big thing I look at is who's racing with me and to make sure that I don't try and stay with them just because they're pulling ahead.
Oh. So it looks like we have, sorry, I'm getting some.
Oh, it is live.
Hold on. It looks like we have the Hyrox World live feed up. So let me pull that up for us.
Awesome.
And then we can watch that. And we probably will watch it without the audio if I can figure out how to do that. So again, if you're just tuning in, it's going to be a little bit hectic in terms of how to follow this thing. So it popped up here. I'm going to turn this volume off. Can you hear the volume, Lauren?
I can hear you, but
You can hear me? Okay, good. I need to turn this volume off.
I was going to see if I could pull it up on my computer, and then I realized I don't know how to turn the volume off on that.
All right, we have some women in. Is it sharing on?
Sharing is not on. Here, let me make it
let's
bigger.
pull it up to the screen.
Oh, sharing is on.
There we go.
And it looks like the women are already on the ski erg, so we missed their first 1,000, which is interesting to kind of see. I like to see how fast people want to take it out. We'll be able to go back and look, but.
So Lauren, on the ski erg, I need to figure out this volume. This is like right in my ear. What are some of the things when coming into a ski erg? I mean, there's a couple things to consider, right? And it's so early in this race that, like you had mentioned before, you don't want to blow yourself up really, but there's a couple different factors that you want to look at. So when you're this early in the race, are you trying to control like your strokes per minute, or what's your form? What's like your general approach to the ski erg, especially something this early in the race?
I think this is something that is going to be like personal based. So for me, I can blow up on the ski erg pretty easily. So I have to go into it knowing that I'm not going to try and be going as fast as I possibly can on it because it would completely ruin my entire race. But for somebody who might be a stronger, taller, like better pole athlete, they could probably crush the station and gain some time. I'm just not one of them. So I'm someone who has to kind of hold back a little bit on this one and then hope to catch up on some later stations.
Yeah. So
do you attack this?
What was that?
Do you attack this station?
I don't. I really keep it low key. Here's a look at Tara Jackson, the sole U.S. athlete in the race. Looks like she came in somewhere in that mid pack. So I do not attack this. This is definitely something where I want to take it really easy early on. Here's a look on the other side here.
Well, that's Rebecca Nader in the green shorts.
This is Viola here in the black tights. Yeah. And the blue with the blue tank is who is in the front, who I can't make out who that is.
I can't tell until she turns, but based off of the haircut, which is the only thing I have to go on, it might be Mirham.
Okay. And if that's the case, she was the first one to come into the ski erg section. So she's pushing it. And I mean,
and being a CrossFitter, I would expect her to be one of the first ones off. Like this should be a station she's very comfortable with.
I agree. What are some of the things here in ski erg that, you know, we're talking about cadence and pace and things like that and really wanting to not blow yourself up. But what are some things that you see when looking at the form of these athletes that either one stand out as correct or something that you see athletes that might be doing it a little bit less efficient?
So I'm looking at Rebecca right now. They kind of just pulled her off the screen. She's a phenomenal athlete, but she is not standing up all the way. Like she's losing a lot of that line to pull. And her body is staying hunched over. So she's not getting like the full pull that she could. And she doesn't have to reach all the way up, but she should fully extend her body, like one for breathing purposes, and then two to get more length in that chain.
And you're probably more in a state of flexion, right? Which something that can happen on the burpee broad jumps is when your hips are flexed the whole time, you start kind of cramping up there. If you're constantly kind of in that flexion position during the ski erg, you're probably going to feel a lot more in your core, because
you're going to feel a lot more in your core, and you're already kind of disrupting your breathing patterns. And it's a bit too early in the race to be doing that.
So, and Viola looks like she's the first one off. Viola's out in a pretty quick time. Looks like Sarah's following.
Like 6 of them are coming out at once.
Yeah, wow. And there goes Tara. So let's see if we can pull up their split here. I'm just going to have to read it to you whenever it comes up.
It looks like Sarah came out second. Maybe Miriam was third. And it looked like Tara left the station 5th.
Sounds like we may have a cameraman on site. I mean, this is okay at this point. It's just not great that we get to see all the comments too.
We get to see all the comments, and I kind of want to follow that front pack, and they're still on the ski erg right now.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. It's hard to catch the running a lot of these things. I wish that we could find it a little bit better, because now it's kind of like it goes and we wait, but hopefully we can get the splits up so we can take a look at it.
I know in our Chicago race recently, Hyrox put a rabbit out onto the course, and they were running with us. So that I didn't get to see the feed, obviously, because it was live and we were going, but I know they were out there. I could hear the guy breathing behind me.
Yeah, and they can do a good job. Depends on who's out there and who's hustling. So did you get to take a look at the actual course layout? Did you look at the tech briefing?
Briefly, actually, but I should probably relook at that.
Well, it's a 3-lap course, and it doesn't look like it's a complete square or circle. There's a part, I think Dallas was kind of like this, where there's like an edge. There's like an edge. There's something like that here. Every time you go out, you have to cross where the start line is where you have to cross 3 times. The in and out are different than the start line, and the in and out are right next to each other on what looked like the south end of the convention center or whatever area they are in.
Sometimes the beginning 1,000 or the end 1,000 is an extra lap or a lap shorter. Do we know if they have any extra laps or less laps in the course?
On the last one, I think it's 3 laps. I think you cross the start 3 laps each time. So the wall balls, I think, are still through the rock zone, the regular rock zone entrance, but just it's going to be a longer transition to get there. So the runtime should be pretty consistent that we see each time here, where in other races, like Chicago is a good example. The first and last one, those run times were all skewed, and the middle ones were probably all kind of short for that sake. So in this course, it also looks like the rock zone is very short. The in and out are right at the entrance and exit of the sled push and pull. So you're not going to have that.
And I'm very interested to see the rock zone times after that. That's one of the things I've been paying attention to of the European courses versus the American. I had the opportunity to talk with one of the owners at like our most recent race in Chicago, and he said that they were standardizing all of the races to be 8.7K so that the rock zone and any extra running that we were doing would equal up to an extra 0.7 so that they'd all be the same. And I thought that was nice to have like a standardization, but even some of the European races I've seen after that had rock zones that were more than 2 minutes faster than ours. So I have a hard time believing that all of the Americans are 2 minutes slower in a transition.
And that's the one thing with the zones, right? Like when I would look at it, I'm like, okay, so they must compensate for the amount of time that we're in the rock zone by making the runs shorter so that it all equals out. But that doesn't really sound like that's the case, does it? Like that it
doesn't, but I think it sounds like they were trying to go in that direction, and I like that idea. It'll standardize it at least a little bit there.
Yeah, because there's just the challenges with this that they're they still have to work within the confines of the space that they have, you know. So that these races are unfortunately different each time. So looking at a course like this where the rock zone looks like it's going to be short, do you anticipate in like a 3-lap uh a 3-loop run, do you anticipate these times to be fast because of that?
If the rock zone is short, I anticipate you'll see the guys will go under an hour.
All right, we're here at the sled push.
So the blue top is Linda, actually.
Okay.
So Linda Meyer is in the blue top. She's the one who came in second, like maybe 2 seconds behind Viola. But whoever is in lane 3 looks like a strong sled pusher. She's already past 2 of the girls, and she's just behind Viola right now.
So this is our first real opportunity to talk about the sled, because I think this is the biggest controversy between the U.S. and the Viola went unbroken that first time down, and it looks like
Looks like all of these girls are going unbroken. One of them stopped, but
this
4 of the
sled
girls
is
have done
flying.
a length unbroken.
One thing that I noticed is the overhead technique I find to be the best way to control your breathing, but it's really hard to keep stable and to generate that type of power. Like your feet are moving so much further away from the weights. Like if you look at the person who is in second right now, their feet are so much closer than where Viola's are, so far away. So I can't imagine that it's an easier way to push this, but Viola is pushing it unbroken down and back overhead.
Yeah, she's already halfway done. She only has 2 more lengths to go.
And she is not resting. She is
and I don't disagree with you. Personally, I like to switch between the 2 different ways because I feel like it's hitting different parts of my legs if I kind of go back and forth. And then it's not over fatiguing one muscle.
And with you also do like the pits of your elbows, and that's something that I've adopted as well to get a little bit closer to the weights, and that makes it a little bit more glute centric and just keeps the traction underneath my hips a little bit better. So this looks like, is that Sarah Cote making? Is this her first time, or is that her second?
Lane. I think that's her second time.
So she's making a move.
That might be her first. Because I can't imagine that's got to be her first time through. I can't imagine she's passed all those girls already. I mean, Sarah's strong, so.
She is strong, and that she's a strong competitor from in this field. So we're not sure who's
gaining a lot of time right here, though.
And it looks like
she's almost done with this last one, and the other girls are only finishing their third lane.
So Linda must have run really hard. She must have run really hard on the first one. She came into the ski erg first, and she was the first one at the sled push as well. So it looks like she's having a little bit of a hard time on the sled as we see Viola finish up and head out. That was a monster effort on those sleds. So let's see if Sarah
we'll find out right here too, see if Sarah's done.
And she's out. Wow. Big move by Sarah. So that was only about a 7 seconds gap.
No, and I think Sarah made up 3 places right there.
Yeah. And these women who we see here, they're working. They're not.
This is Rebecca that's about to finish. So Rebecca Nader.
It's another 15 seconds. Oh, she's a little wobbling as you would be after the sled.
And I don't know this girl with the short hair, but the one that we've been told to watch out for is Miriam. So I can take a guess that. Oh no, because I think that one in the all black was Miriam. I feel like I recognize her there.
A little bit shorter.
So whoever has the short hair with the I don't know that one. But she's strong.
We just Heather had Viola as 2:30 on the sled.
Thank you, Heather. Dang, that's fast.
That is fast.
I don't think I've touched anywhere of a 2:30 sled.
Yeah, generally. So, okay, now that we're seeing some of these athletes kind of finish up, what the difference I see are 2 different things from structurally on the sled. Those poles are definitely higher than the ones that we have here in the States, and those plates are stacked much lower. Other than that, everything else seems to be kind of the same. So between those 2 things, do you believe that has to do with why these sleds are faster? And when you've raced in Europe, the 2 times that you've been there, did it feel faster? Was there a noticeable difference? Like, what could you? Because this seems to be at least a minute faster from the high end athletes.
I would say it definitely felt faster. For me, no matter what, the sled is hard. Like, because if it is faster, like I'm gonna go faster, and now my legs are gonna be just as blown up. You're just kind of gaining a little bit more time.
Heart rate stays
You could
up.
probably, yeah, you could probably strategize it better than what I do if you took a little bit more time rest with a sled that feels lighter. But I've also heard that one of the things that Europe has is sliders at the bottom of their sleds that we don't have. I don't know if that's accurate. I've never actually inspected the bottom of the sled while I was over there.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't imagine they a have sliders at the
I
bottom.
feel like that'd be an easy thing to take off, and that they would take off if it was there.
And if you ever pushed on like a turf surface versus like a carpet, like most gyms have turf, right? And they actually do slide. If there were sliders on the bottom, you'd probably be like running with the thing.
Yeah.
So
none of them have been running with it, that's for sure.
well,
Viola
was
close.
pretty freaking close.
Yeah.
That was a monster sled effort. So
she went unbroken all 4 lengths.
And I guess that's so is 230 the fastest that we could see? I mean, if she was pushing a little bit faster, what do you think? 215? If someone goes unbroken and fast, do you think you could be 2 minutes at a course like
Are
today?
we talking about somebody who's like going to be an actual competitor, or somebody's coming in that's just super strong?
Good question. Yeah, what's the fastest pop? Like someone who's just super strong, say they do it in doubles or something.
So I know we've seen like Hunter and his partner when they did the doubles version, they ran with the sled. And granted, like they got to switch back and forth, but they were able to run with it. And this was, I think, were they in Madrid for that one?
That weight, I think so. But that weight is always, it's not the pro. Whatever the doubles is ends up being the men's weight.
The women's.
The women's. Right. So it's the women's pro, which I think is the same as like the men's non-pro. Yeah.
Okay. But they ran with it. So if you were strong enough, you could run with it. But I would imagine that if you were that strong, your run times would not quite be competitive enough.
I agree. Or it might just be so much so. Her split. Dylan says with the Dylan Scott looks like he pulled up the actual results, which I'm working on. It looks like with the zones, it was a 250.
250. So probably like before she actually touched the sled. So once she walked into the area, and then by the time she got out.
Yes, exactly. That's what Heather's saying.
Probably had the time she was touching the sled.
The true split. Looks like Sarah had a 243, so made up a little bit of time. Now, in the couple of times that you have raced Viola, at least in the Elite 7 to 2020, Elite 12 or whatever they called it in 2020, she went out pretty hot. And it was kind of by the end of the race, you were able to kind of run her down. Is this typical? Like, will she try to assert herself this early into a race to then dictate what's going to happen throughout? Oh, it looks like she's coming into the sled pull.
Yeah, I've never seen her kind of start further back. It seems that she goes out hot every time, and sometimes she holds on, and then I think we've seen even in one of her more recent races, she just wasn't able to hold on that one.
So I like her form here, how she kicked.
You can see her form here. She's keeping the rope to one side. I've noticed that some girls will put it in between their legs and walk with it so the one girl we don't know the name of, that's how she's doing it. And you might be able to get a little bit more leverage that way, but you're also more likely to trip over the rope.
Correct. And so the rope management is a big part of this that you need to make sure you're having. So you'll actually see Viola walk out and kick the rope to the side and as part of her pull, which I think is kind of a cool way. You can tell she's definitely practicing this.
Yeah.
So Lauren, this was a hole in your game when you first started with the Hyrox events that you shored up. So what were the things that you found made the biggest difference for you to go from, losing a lot of space to holding onto that space, if not gaining ground on the sled pull?
So for me, I always went into this station with anxiety because I knew how difficult it was. So I think not going in not confident wasn't helpful. So it was a mindset change for one. And then two, I also would watch some girls around me and how they were doing it, and I would try and replicate that. And I learned that just because they were able to do it. So you can see Miriam right now just overhand pulling it. Like she's not even using her legs.
Right.
Like she wasn't walking a little bit. And I've seen girls do that, and I would try and replicate that, and it would crush me. I can't physically just pull on the sled and make it move. But in my head, I would look at them and be like, well, if they're doing it, so can I. But no,
right.
I cannot.
So it's a lot more just kind of matching your
style with your personality.
Yes.
And like your athlete personality. So
and
everybody's going to have a different technique. And some are going to work. So Miriam is going to save her legs on this, where other people are blowing their legs up, but she might be the only one strong enough to actually pull that way.
Right. And the next one, I mean, burpees does, we're looking at Viola with her last pull here. I'm going to try to get a clock to see what her lead is. But this is kind of how I'll pull it as well. I'm kicking back and forth the idea of not dropping this rope, walking my hands forward. And this must be Sarah's.
That looks like what Sarah's doing.
She is crushing this sled again. So she did lose some time. You can see that she got to the sled pull in third. And Viola is done. So there's a lap on her. So the running looks like the athletes who are in second and fourth might be a bit more fresh on the running side, or taking themselves into that space just to remain in connection with Sarah. So she might be in control still. So we'll see how it plays out in the later stages. So Sarah's out, and she has a 20-second lead is what Viola has right now.
I feel like every time Sarah comes into a station, she just makes up so much ground, because she, again, didn't come into that station second, but she was out second. So she will be one of those stronger athletes in the field. We don't know much about Miriam, but I'm going to guess that I would guess she's probably the actual strongest athlete in this field.
So we're looking here that I think who was in second is Jezebel Kremer.
Oh, thank you,
Laura.
Jezebel Kremer.
Let's see.
Do we have any info on her?
What's my little sheet say? I mean, she's not in the top 15 times this year, so she might be someone that we see make a big jump in terms of her time.
Has she done one before? Are we able to?
I'm not sure. I would imagine. I don't know if there was a gated start for this. Like if you needed
there was not a gated start. So it was like the Chicago one. Anybody could start in that pro wave.
So here's
so that might be why we didn't know anything about her.
That's exactly why, because we would have known other than that. Yeah. So this is Dylan popped up, said Tara's time was 3:39. So I mean, that's not too much.
Do we know what her previous sled times have been for the pole? Like, is that on par with what she normally does?
That was the push. I would imagine that's pretty
close to what she normally does. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how I was sitting here saying before, it's probably 60 seconds faster with Tara's time. And this is a pretty small rock zone, being at 3:40. Now, granted, this isn't international travel. You know, we don't know how long she's been there. We don't really know what this is for her or how fresh she is feeling. But that's not that much faster than what I think that she would typically do.
I think she's been there for about a day. This seems like a short trip for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we got her. Looks like her best time. This is for Jezebel. It's just 69:21. So it's still very early in this race.
You were much faster. I was trying to get that up.
Yo, Dylan's our guy on the ground.
So she has done one. Do we know if this is only her second one or if she's done multiple before?
Dylan said one. Oh, she also went Madrid 112. So right now, I mean, if you're with Viola at this stage or with Sarah, they're athletes who are going to be in that like 67. Sarah's PR is a 65:30. So if you're even with them at this point, you are either
Yeah,
in great shape or just racing incredibly aggressive and hoping you're going to hang on. So we'll see
yeah.
which
If
one.
Jezebel hangs on to this, she's gonna have a major PR. Like, there's no way those other girls are going to 109 right now.
No way. With the splits that we're seeing, let's see if we can
Yeah.
get the pole splits up. So now that this race, the men's former world record holder, Hunter McIntyre, he has gone on the record saying the race doesn't start until after the sleds. So how are you feeling at this point of a race once the sleds are down? We still have 5 stations that are not particularly easy ahead of you. When you're racing, are you trying to engage further, like to take it to put it into the next gear, or are you still trying to feel out where your energy is at this point?
At this point, I'm still feeling it out because there's a lot of racing left. But at the same time, and this is a very unpopular opinion, we're coming up on my favorite station. So I like the burpee broad jump. So I'm thrilled at this point to be done with the sleds and moving on to a station that I'm looking forward to. But you can't forget that at the end, you're ending with a ton of lunges, weighted lunges, and then 100 wall balls. So there's still a lot to go.
I have found those stations, in particular lunges and wall balls, to be much more mentally taxing. Just even thinking about like how I'm currently feeling, say on the row or on the run after the row, and then being like, oh my God, I have a bunch of lunges. Oh no, I have a bunch of wall balls. That to me is the worst part of those stations. So we have Viola coming in.
Yeah, she looks like she's got a pretty big lead. I think I might see Sarah starting to come in, but she hasn't even started her burpee broad jumps yet. So Viola's got a very decent sized lead. Okay, so Jezebel, it looks like she's coming in second with Sarah just behind her in third.
No, I think Jezebel was with the blue top.
That's the blue top is Linda. So the short hair.
I thought it was with I thought it's our person who chimed in said that it was with the French braid.
Oh, can I go
with
back?
The short hair. Oh no, short hair French. No, I'm wrong. Yeah, I was wrong.
Okay.
Yes, that's Jezebel. So she's still in the mix. She had another strong
run.
Place
right now. And if she's got a good cardio engine, this is a good station for her. It looks like she's pretty neck and neck with Sarah right now. You'll kind of notice some different styles here too. So Viola's taking that step up before she jumps. Some people will pop their feet up. I've seen many people crawl their way up to their next rep.
I mean, yeah, it looks to me, and she's it's down and back. So I can get a clock here. It looks like Viola is sort of crawling up. When you shuffle the knees toward the hands, that's a pretty clear sign of fatigue. Maybe she is just conserving here, but if you're not fully stepping or jumping up, if you do that kind of crawl, slide the knees forward, probably having a hard time. So let's see what the form looks like here. So looking back a little bit. Yeah, what do you think about the body language here?
So it does look like, I mean, we'd all be tired at this point, but it does look like she's showing some fatigue. She definitely looked back to see how close her competitors were to her. So she's still a little bit worried to kind of see if she's safe in her spot or not. And I would say that even with this big lead that she has, you're never safe. Like, so much can happen in that back half of the race.
Absolutely.
But you'll notice that she's smart. She's not standing all the way up in between each rep. So this is going to constrict her breathing, which might be a detriment to her. But at the same time, it's faster because she's not wasting time standing all the way up. So
it's one of these stations where you just have to be uncomfortable for the 2 to 3 minutes at the athletes at this level, and just know your breathing's not going to be great. Know your quads might be burning up a little bit, again, because of that flexion that I mentioned in the skier. I get similar feelings with this because while keeping my chest down, is that my hips are in a flexion position. And this is a spot where you can cramp. You can start to feel a little bit crampy, and it's really early in the race to start feeling that. So it looks like
wouldn't think it would affect your wall balls, but yeah, this position could tire you out for those later wall balls. We'll see Sarah's made up a ton of time in this burpee broad jump too.
What a push that she made. She passed Jezebel on one more jump we could get. Made it. So it's 16 seconds. So she cut about 4 seconds between the push and now.
And
This is
then
the
this
last
is
time we got
Miriam
this.
coming in here in all black. So did we lose Jezebel on the burpee broad jump? Looks like she's still back there. Because this is Linda Meyer coming in also. So
it looks like Jezebel there on our
might
left.
be my favorite station, but it looks like this is not necessarily her best station.
Yeah, you might be on an island on that one.
Yeah.
Just I think Bracken Crocker, that's what he says his favorite station is as well. This one is just so you do the step up technique. Did you think of that? Like, why is that your preferred method for?
That's just what I've been used to with CrossFit. So again, it is technically slower than jumping 2 feet forwards, and it is slower in CrossFit, but it manages your effort better. So if you're willing to lose a little bit of time but save some effort, that's the way to go. If you want to maximize how fast you can go, it's going to be 2 feet forwards each time. But
right, it's
not losing a lot of energy.
You have to think of it as a 70-minute AMRAP for.
Yes, it's not just this like 2 to 3 minute workout.
No, and here comes Tara. Station. Tara looks like she to be in 5th or 6th.
Yeah, so we've seen Viola come through, then Sarah, then Linda, and then we saw Jezebel, and now here's Tara, which means we haven't seen Rebecca. So, and I honestly haven't seen her in that last station. So I'm curious to see if she is still currently in the race or if she pulled out.
So I'm going to pull up the splits really fast for the sled pull. And then we can get back to the feed.
Yeah.
So like I said, Sarah had made up about 4 seconds between the pull and the burpees. So it looks like it was all here and then lost a little bit on the run and maybe maintained through the burpees.
This looks like a fun race to be at. I'm jealous of all of them.
getting a little bit of FOMO looking at this. FOMO. So let's see. You were saying Rebecca. She did look like she did finish the sled pull a little bit further back. Yeah, Jezebel is right in the mix. Yeah, good pull there. Miriam right in the mix. We have
Rebecca. She was the one who stated that she wants it the most and intends to win. Was Rebecca was the one that said that.
Yeah, that was just a fun dichotomy between the men and the women when they did the Hyrox World Stories. The men were all like, "Yeah, I'm going to be on the podium," and the women were all like, "I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to do very well this weekend."
I really appreciate when they do that because it's fun to kind of see just even like a little bit of their inside thoughts.
It was great. That was enough of a race lead up that we don't see necessarily from other races or other race companies. That is great.
It highlights the athlete a little bit. It kind of gives us like an idea of their personality, their mindset going into it.
I agree. I think that's exactly right. It's who they get to see them speak. You know, they're not just like, especially with these European athletes for us. I mean, I haven't met any of these guys these male competitors. So it's nice to see what they're like and what their mindset's going to be like. All right, I'm going to pull up the burpee broad jumps here. Whoops. Never mind. So pulling up the burpee broad jumps.
Do you have a set point in your race that you think it's go time and this is where you start laying the hammer down?
So I like it at this run in particular. The run after the burpee broad jumps is where I know if I can have some run left in me, like this is where it needs to go. In the past, it's been very much about conserving my running so that I can do well in the stations in the early part and in this back half just kind of start to move. So this is really where it's just about the halfway point as well. So it's kind of like where I want to kind of finish strong here. So right where this is where, to me, is where I would make a move. How about yourself? Do you have a go-to spot? Oh, we got him on the...
No, honestly, I don't have a spot that I necessarily turn it on. I have more of a spot of, all right, this is where it's going to hurt, and this is where you have to mentally push, and that's when the lunges come in.
So you're able to kind of stay in control until the race is almost done, because that would be the last 12 minutes of this 65-minute race for you.
Right. And it's kind of all dependent on the athlete. So for me, like, I'm not as strong of a runner as you. So I can't kind of just preserve my run and then just run people down and sprint them down at the end, where I think that's definitely a strength that you have.
Which is right. Like, so again, it comes down to the athlete and their preference, where that I know that's going to be a strength. So I can't run the legs off of me too early.
So we hear on the rower, that's Linda in the blue, Viola's right next to her, and then Sarah is on the third rower. So we have at least 3 girls on the rower right now. It's actually pretty tight. So Viola did have a good lead going into that Burpee broad jump. We now have 5 girls there. Looks like Jezebel and Rebecca joined. But it looks like Sarah made up a good amount of time on Viola. So we'll see how this back half goes. I know I've seen Viola do her 100 wall balls unbroken before. That is wow. Not something I have done. So she definitely has the potential to do that.
So if you know this and you're in this race at this point and trailing someone like Viola, if you're in Sarah's position, are you going to try to make a move earlier so that you're not neck and neck with her at wall balls? Is this something that you're thinking about how this is going to play out?
If I were in this race and I were Sarah, I would be trying to make a move right now, knowing that I plan on breaking my wall balls, and I want to be able to have that opportunity to break my wall balls. So I need to be ahead of her going into them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to this rower station, what, in comparison to like maybe your training pace or your PR pace for a rower, what are you holding?
So when even I look at this, I want to, like, the 2K is a good benchmark, right? That you can have on the rower. So I like to be even 4 to 6 seconds faster per 500 than my 2K. So if that makes sense. So that would be around.
That's a drastic difference than me. I think I usually pull around my 5K time for this.
Well, you think it's that much different? How much, like, what would be your 2K split?
I would have to go back and look, but I think I can hold probably around a 150 to 152 for the 2K, or at least in my prime. So maybe not right now. Where my 5K, I know I've been able to hold under 2 for a 5K. But even that, so it's probably been slower than my 5K, because I don't row that fast when I get to this station. This is a conserve station for me.
And that's what's nice about this. If you can be efficient as a rower and still not lose time, this is a great place to kind of catch your breath. You get to sit down. Your heart rate's naturally going to come down a little bit just because you're sitting. You're not standing up. Your heart has an easier time pumping blood through your system when a little bit of it is horizontal. So it is a good place to conserve. So yeah, I try to be around 150 for this per 500, where my 2K would be around like 144 or something like that. Oh, we have a race. They got off at the same time.
Yeah. So Linda and Viola got off at the exact same time. This is like the most impressive performance I've seen from Linda the entire time I've known her. So
to be very good race. This is not a fluke at this point. She must have gained some space on Viola during the run and then matched her or exceeded her pace on the rower. So she's got some gas.
Yeah.
So let's see if
Sarah wasn't too far behind her either. Oh, Dylan said Linda has 2 time penalties.
Oh, that was. Oh.
So the girl who. Wow, that's going to take her back a lot of spots. That's very unfortunate. 2 time penalties, depending on the course, it's either a 3 to a 5 minute penalty per penalty.
Here's what this is Niles is looking on the site. It looks like her fourth run was an 8:02, which they will add if you skip a lap. So that's unfortunate because I was very excited for this race that was happening. So she was gaining time on the run, but she was skipping a lap. So that's how she was able to accomplish that. Maybe not because of the gas in the tank. So
I know. I was super impressed. I was like, wow, Linda, you've made some huge progress.
I mean, and that's what comes down when it's these three races, and that's what's interesting about this course, right? You have to go past the start 3 times. So you don't go past the out 3 times. You go past the actual start. So
if you think about it in Viola's mind right now, she might not know that Linda has 2 time penalties. So that's only going to push her to go harder.
I was going to say, is that better or worse? Yeah.
It could be a benefit because it might create some more space between her and Sarah, who doesn't have a time penalty.
I'm going to pull up the splits for what we have currently on the row. So Miriam had the fastest row, which we shouldn't be surprised about based off of her ability to put out work as a CrossFitter. So, and Viola's was down. She was 21 seconds faster than Viola's on that. And Sarah's was 19 seconds fast. She gained 19 seconds. That was the gap between. So Viola must still have some run in her legs, and Sarah might just be trying to hold on for these stations. But
I wouldn't look too far into Viola's row time because I think I play the row very similar to her. I try and relax on the row. For me, this is another station. So this and the ski erg, if I go even just a little bit over like my threshold, I am blown up for the rest of the race. So I have to be pretty cautious on this one.
Yeah, so maybe that is the case. It is a logical place. And this is where I'll actually take fuel on that run that I had mentioned before after the Big broad jumps, right before the row is where if I'm going to fuel, that's where I'm going to take something. Now this race,
exactly halfway.
Exactly halfway. Do you fuel during these events? It's kind of it's like a gray area, right? Like the science says you probably don't need it for an event that's going to be an hour. You should have enough available glycogen to you to sustain. But at the same time, the work rate's really high.
I've never stepped onto the course without fuel, but I don't use it. I always bring it just in case, and I always run with it. So I'm a girl. I can put in my sports bra. I never don't have it because I don't want to need it and not have it. But besides the World Championship last year, where they let us leave a water bottle by our lane, which was different than most because we got one set lane.
Right.
So I put like a carb powder in that one. So I did fuel during the World Championships, but that's the only one that I actually took fuel. Every time I carry it on me, but I haven't used it.
And that would be the ideal way to take it, right? Because this work rate is so high that if you could just get some in your mouth, some of those carb gels will be able to assimilate through like your gums. So you don't have to like swallow it, take it in, because that's certainly challenging when running and like taking like a goo that is the consistency might not be great. It's hard.
But unless you have it set up where you get your own lane, like that's pretty impossible to do. So
you can wear like you can wear like a belt maybe. So here's Linda, and they're still neck and neck. So she's still hung with her on that run here into the farmer's walk. But for those watching, we believe that Linda has a 10-minute time penalty
now.
Yeah.
So 10 minutes is major.
It's big. I mean, that's like, you finish the race because you're in it, but like this time isn't going to be anything worth the effort, honestly.
No, so Linda does have a time already that is pretty safe in getting her to Vegas. It's just she's once again a German athlete. So how many of the German athletes are we going to see come over?
Exactly. And she has, so her time, her personal best is 67.01, and that's 5th right now in the world. So she's a very formidable athlete. It's just unfortunate that you miss a lap. You have to be penalized.
It sounds like she's missed 2 laps if she has a 10-minute time penalty. So 5 minutes per lap.
It speaks to Viola. She's this is 2 laps that the fifth place athlete, the current athlete in the world, has short on her, and Viola is still in front. Is still putting it to her. So, and she looks strong here.
Yeah,
she looks very
especially
strong.
if she's getting over being sick. She's performing very well.
What is her background as an athlete?
So she is a gymnast. Do you follow Viola?
I don't.
Okay, so she has some pretty incredible, like for anybody out there watching, if you want to be inspired by what the human body can do, like even now with her focus being on Hyrox training, she has like the most incredible body control I've ever seen. So she definitely was a former gymnast and just has the skills that you won't see in an average person. You won't even see in an elite level CrossFitter.
And that's the thing, that the body control and the gymnastics, it's not necessarily a prerequisite for someone to do well in a Hyrox event where it's just about work rate. You know, like seeing a traditional triathlete, like I believe Sarah has a triathlete background, or just like
so Sarah is an Ironman, like full Ironman athlete.
So that's something that I think would translate a little bit better, just like this a big capacity to do work, so where this body control piece you would think would be better suited in something like CrossFit, would give it a bit of an advantage on that. But it's great that she has that work rate with the body control. She just seems to be very well rounded.
And for anybody who might be interested in big efforts, one of Sarah's future goals is she wants to row across the Atlantic.
Oh my God.
So that is one of her future goals.
Is that a thing that people can do? Can you do that?
I think so. Yeah, it's been done before. I'm not sure if she's going for the record or just to complete it. Knowing Sarah, she's probably going for some type of record.
Right. I'm sorry. My
here's a puppy.
Little dog. So it looks like we did have Miriam in third, Sarah holding on to second here. Yeah. And it looks like that there is a lot of run left in Viola. It looks like we got the pro men getting ready. So this will be pretty decent, this time spaced out. I wish they would just let the entire race finish. That would be nice. But
yeah. They were so close. If they give them just like 10 more minutes, then
why not? Right.
Yeah. It's just 10 minutes. But yeah, it looks like the men are about to start. Some of the more, like probably the most notable name here right now is Tobias, who is our most recent world champion, and also last week, so 1 week ago, he broke Hunter's record.
He's becoming the most decorated of our Hyrox athletes. Yeah, 1 week ago off of a world record attempt. So it'll be interesting to see how he's able to bounce back. And the young and up-and-comer Tim Vinish, who you'll see right next to him with the black T-shirt, has really stormed onto the scene this year. He has not lost a head-to-head competition. He beat Tobias earlier this year. His time of 57, I think, which is fast no matter where you do it. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in his first real big championship race. And the men are.
Were you able to catch our? So there's a UK athlete, UK male athlete. Were you able to catch his name?
His name is Michael Sandin something. Sorry.
Sandbach?
Yes. Who has a 60-30 something. So
this was part of the reason that I liked Hyrox kind of highlighting some of the athletes ahead of time, because I didn't know him until that story, and it kind of just gave me a little insight into his personality. And
he's confident.
He is confident. He's very
ready
confident
to rock. I hope that if I was interviewed, I would come off by that guy, but I'd probably be like, I don't know. Probably everybody's going to run well. Let's see how it goes. But he was like, I'm going to surprise
just have
people.
a chat with him before you're interviewed.
I need some of that British swagger. Yeah, he ran. So I'm just going to put this out there. When I first was considering doing this footage, my first thought was like, well, I don't really want these men to run that fast. I don't really want to watch this race and root against it, because right now my time is 11th, and there's a handful of men here who can make the jump ahead of me in the top 15, depending on how this race goes. And Michael Sandbach, he's 2 seconds ahead of me right now, and there's a huge clump of men between like 60-20 and 60-50. And there are two guys who haven't really put up a time yet this year, with Thiago Lusa, who was the third place finisher at the World Championships last year, kind of came out of nowhere. And then Gregory Rezonico from Switzerland, who has a time of 60-15, who hasn't really raced a time this year. So this race
I
is
think your
stacked.
11th place is pretty safe, if I were to guess. But I
If you're
mean, yes, anything could happen.
if you're trying to
Um,
make me feel better, it's working. Thank you.
so,
I'm hoping that
well,
I'm
I would expect that not all of our all of our European athletes will be able to make the trip over for the race, which means there are going to be roll downs. From what I've been heard, though, there is only going to be 2 max roll downs.
that is how I understand it as well. And
So
that
you need to have at least the 17th best time.
and that's something that
So even if 3 people decide not to come and you're 18th place, you will not be running in Vegas.
so just recently the last Hyrox event last week knocked David Magida out of the top 15, right? So he's now somewhere like that 16, 17, and Dylan Scott is even further down. So like this race may only have 8 men in it, depending on what happens with travel stuff. I bet there will be more, but I guess they have to draw the line somewhere to
They
make it.
do, and they're not like, this isn't law. Like they can change their minds if they want to, and I'm sure that we could potentially see that if they see that they're not going to have a big enough field. But currently, that's what the standards are: is they're only going to allow 2 drop down spots.
On this first run, it looks like Tobias is taking it very easy. Gentleman here in first might be Tiago.
Which I have seen from Tobias many times over. He is somebody that does not go out hot.
He is
is
pretty dialed
very,
in.
yeah, he manages his effort better than probably almost any athlete I've seen in this sport.
Now, looking at, that was Tiago coming in first, who is a very good CrossFitter, owns a CrossFit gym in Spain. He is a very high level athlete who did a good job in 2021 of pacing himself to find himself in that podium position when it mattered at the wall
I
ball.
think,
So still a little bit different.
Tiago is a Portuguese athlete.
Portuguese, I'm sorry.
Portuguese, yeah.
Thank you. We got a quick shot of Tim's form here, and it looks like very fast cadence, not very powerful, where you see Tobias taking his time, big strokes, big recovery, really allowing himself to breathe and be in control, where the cadence was pretty fast. Your cadence is actually pretty fast on this as well. Do you have a place where you shoot for? Are you in the 40s, mid 40s, closer to 50?
For my cadence, honestly, I don't pay attention. Yeah, I don't pay attention to that. I don't want to put a lot of effort into each stroke because it for me it wipes me out. So I'd rather just have a higher stroke rate and not have to pull as hard. Because again, like that sled pull station is always coming up, and it's not one of my strongest suits. So I'd rather not waste any pull energy on this station.
Right. So you're thinking of it in terms of compartmentalizing what energy systems you're going to need later on, which is a smart way to think of it, because this can be very, very exhausting here. I wish that they would go back to the women as well. I would like to see the finish of
they're
that
getting
race.
close to.
They have to be on the lunges.
And the lunges is a good spot to watch. Like when you're doing skier, everybody's pretty similar. I mean, you've got different styles, but the lunges, anything can happen.
It's a race. You can see people going and moving. In the skier, that's one thing with this that it's hard for me to, like, there's got to be a better way to watch, a better way to kind of organize this, where it's like maybe moving from skier to something else and back to skier, so you can see how things are playing out in those 4 minutes. Where right now we're just like sitting there waiting to see who the first person off is. You can really just scrub through it and move to see who the first one on. You get the same story. Or in the lunges, you get to see. You get to see how people are feeling. You get to see people kind of race a little bit slow, but they're still racing. Okay, here we're back at the lunges.
Oh, we are. So this is Miriam
That's
again.
Miriam. We must have missed the top women. She looks strong. This looks.
Yeah, she's just cruising. She's not even stepping in between.
Yeah, she looks great here. She has that CrossFitter range of motion for sure.
Yeah. Crushing.
So
and then we have. Is this Sarah? So did Miriam pass Sarah? Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. And then behind Sarah, we have Rebecca. And then very close behind is Jezebel behind Rebecca.
Who's hanging on, considering how hard that she went out and where her current PRs are. She is having a great race at this point, unless wall balls are something that she just has a really, really hard time doing in terms of like her mobility or just her movement, this looks good. She's going to
Yeah.
be right in the mix
I'm
for
very
a
impressed
world
with your
championship time.
race.
Yeah, she's racing
Yeah.
great. And this could be a good race in that, like with these last four athletes all getting into wall balls pretty close. Looks like Miriam's going to have a bit of a gap here. Oh, there's a
And for
pass
the
there.
women right now, it looks like 15th place, you need to be under a 69.30, something in that range in order to get into the top 15.
So again, you would think that she has to be in that ballpark. We don't have a great idea of what the total clock is on this, but you would think that she would be there.
Which is crazy because then we see some other like stellar female athletes that would be bumped out of that top 15.
I know. Chris Rogloski, I think, is hanging on to 15th right now. Tara's 13th, you know? So if there's 2 or 3 women who can move up in this race in particular, we could see our American.
I think all the people ahead of Tara right now, though, already have a faster time than her. So I think she's still pretty set in her spot.
Well, you figured Jezebel would be.
Oh, Jezebel is one more. Yeah.
So at least one. So that might bump Chris.
But fortunately for Chris, I know she is going to do one more race. She's only getting better, like by leaps and bounds every time she does it. So I would expect her to PR in her next one. And again, I don't foresee that we'll see all the Europeans take their spots. So I think anybody who's up into that 17th spot will still be able to race.
So what you'd like to see is that like they take the top 5 from the North American Championship and the top 5 from the European Championship and give them the spots guaranteed, right? They race their way into it as opposed to like worrying about how the times and the courses are at these different
right,
venues.
because at those championship races, like you're expecting to see some of the top athletes come out. Like it shouldn't just be a normal race where they're getting a free podium.
And if you
not that any podium is free, but
no,
they really have to work for that one.
And then it proves that they are a championship caliber competitor, right? Where sometimes these courses, especially the European courses that we've seen this year, they are fast. You can get second in a race kind of all by yourself and run, 67 minutes on the women's end. And but in a championship field, we want to see how you're able to kind of stack up against the best and how you're going to race against them. We don't necessarily need more time trial athletes in a championship race. We want to see the best racers in it. So
yeah, because it's different. Like you can race to get your best time or you can race to win. Like it's not always going to be the same.
Exactly. And that's why I think there should be some sort of, we got a dual screen go. Maybe we're going to have a men's and women's. That's why I think there should be at least, top 3 or top that are given a spot guaranteed. They're both at wall balls. Okay.
So we noticed when the men lined up, there were a lot of different, and same probably with the women. Women were maybe a little bit closer, a lot of different body types. Have you figured that there is one type that is best suited for a Hyrox race?
So you figure it's on the men's side, the dimensions are something that is going to be closer to like a Ryan Kent, right? Who's going to be about 6 foot 180 and change. Because you're going to be strong enough and it's not going to be so big where you're going to be adding enough muscle mass that it could potentially inhibit your running. But then we see some of these European athletes who are pretty lean. Tobias is not a very muscle bound person. Tim Vinish is also pretty slight. Dylan Scott, who we mentioned a couple of times, are these outliers that show like your work rate can really make up for it, where you think those bigger, stronger athletes would have a bit of an advantage. But you can train yourself into some pretty good times here at Hyrox. How about on the women's end? What are your thoughts on that? Because even so you and Viola in particular, she's a little bit taller than you, right?
She is a little bit taller than me. Honestly, I think like the female that has the potential to be, that I've seen race so far, the potential to be the best out there is Rebecca. And she is currently not racing because she is in her residency with being
Rebecca Hammond. Rebecca Hammond.
Hammond.
So you think that a slighter runner who can get some of the skills,
a runner with like a very strong like strength emphasis. So yes. Like she's trained herself to be strong, and she is very strong, but she also has some incredible speed. I mean, I know she can, at least when she was racing, she could still run under a 5-minute mile. I think her PR might have been in the 440s.
She was a collegiate
Like,
runner. Yeah, she
yeah.
was a collegiate runner, very very fast athlete. Yeah, then she found herself into some CrossFit and has and is good with movement. Right, that's another piece of this. Is like if you can move, you're going to have a better time through like the lunges and the squats and things.
I think over the years we're going to see some more people come into it, but I do think that those with a running background that have decided to prioritize strength are going to be the ones we're seeing come through, which is not my background, but it is yours.
That is kind of my background. Yeah. So yeah, as we see the generation of athletes come in, they're going to come in from both sides.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the men here. There's a lot of men here on the sled push, and they are moving this thing. They are really hoofing it. It looks like Tim is somewhere 5th or 6th. Tim Vinesh. Tiago's back into 3rd. I'm not exactly sure who these first 2 athletes are. Well, this might be Michael Sandbach, who's in first.
Well, while you're going, I'm watching these women too, and like Viola had a pretty big lead coming in, but man, Miriam's wall balls just look incredible.
Oh wow, she does look really good at those wall balls.
She
might be at like you can see like the upright torso. You can see she's kind of on her way down before she catches the ball. This is classic CrossFit here. Like where she's catching the ball directly under her. This looks like Viola's in some distress. That's a no rep.
Yeah.
It looks like the ball. I know, it's a thing. Looks like the ball is carrying her. How you can see the difference in the motion between Miriam and Viola here. Viola's catching the ball, leaning forward, and Miriam's just up and down. It's like she's doing air squats.
So if anybody's watching and plans to be on that in that race in Vegas, you need to know that you gotta. Oh, come on, Viola, pick up the ball. you got to come into the wall ball ahead of her because. Man,
quick break.
Powerhouse thing.
If you're going to break on these, that's how you do it. Like just drop it 1 second and back on it. I find the biggest challenge with wall balls is just the mental piece of picking the ball back up. Once I rest, I'm like, this is better than what I was doing before, but you can't let your brain be there because you can always do one more wall ball, you know?
For you, what do you feel like is fatiguing the most when you're doing the wall balls?
It's actually my shoulders. And I've played around in training with using a heavier ball, but my legs get fatigued before my shoulders do. With the competition ball, my shoulders end up going. How about you?
Usually it is my shoulders. In the more recent race, I hadn't been able to train for a bit because Miriam
comes back. Oh my goodness. What a comeback. Wow.
So I only saw her break once and her cycle speed was incredibly fast.
She may be like by 3:15. I'm interested to see what her total time is going to be on those wall balls.
That was incredible.
That was unbelievable. An absolute clinic.
And then we saw Viola, like she was breaking and it's not like it's okay to break, but her issue there was she was walking away from the ball. Like if you're going to break, you need to stand over it and then get ready to pick it up again.
That's a thing. Like she was wearing the stress on her face. She really was not interested in doing these wall balls at all. And, and that's another part of this is that it is very a mental part. There's a lot of time to think on wall balls, especially when you start to rest. And it looked like that the fatigue was just kind of seeping into her brain and that she couldn't fight back against it.
Did Rebecca come in before Viola? Did Rebecca come in second?
It
looked like she was already laying on the ground. Rebecca Nader.
Looks like we have.
I think podium might have been Miriam, Rebecca Nader, and then Viola.
Right now, I don't have Rebecca in on the results. Looks like Viola was in 105.10. Rebecca was 65.16. And Miriam's time was 64.20.
Wow.
Very fast.
Very fast.
Very fast on that end. So we're on looking like the podium on the women's side, Miriam Van Roer and a 64.20, Viola Oberlander.
And that's a new top time going into.
That's a world best. Vegas. That's a world best right now. Yeah. So
yeah.
Very impressive. She kind of ran her own race. She must have known what she had that advantage. We saw her on the lunges. We saw her on the wall balls clearly. She can really cycle through those movements faster than I think that we have seen.
Yeah.
Let's see on. I just want to pull up what those wall balls are. Oh yeah. You got a guess for her time for the wall balls?
308.
305.
Wow.
That is basically unbroken, right? Like this is something, if you go unbroken and your cycle speed is as fast as someone like Miriam's, maybe you get to 3 minutes. Like, it's like, what do you think her Karen time is? Like a 450?
Might even be faster. She doesn't break on Karen because she's fresh. It is 50 more wall balls, but she's fresh.
She's fresh.
And with that, what we just saw, like she's not breaking on Karen.
Her range of motion and her power is like really, really solid. Her cycle time is fast, efficient. So we were talking about Viola being someone you don't want to be around at those wall balls, but I guess that is not the case.
No.
And Viola took 503. So she was really, really hurting. She was really hurting at that point. And Rebecca was 339. So she made a big push. And Sarah was 352. So she held on really well also. So she just had really good stations from top to bottom. It's a really solid race for Sarah.
Wow. That was a huge comeback. I just can't believe to see her come. I mean, we saw her maybe all the way back and forth at some points in this race for Miriam, and
she was really not even a factor in this race from our perspective until the lunges. That was the first time I was like, oh, she might be okay. I just figured that a big time race that went out a little hot and maybe got too hot for her. And then she was just kind of.
She's somebody that appears to manage her effort again very well, because she did not take it out hot in the beginning. She was not with those girls who were like in that front pack.
Yeah, so she
knew to preserve.
For someone who's just starting the sport, to have that type of wherewithal to keep the race within herself is really impressive. So we got the men coming in. Some of our top men right now is Alex Rankovic, was the one of the first guys in and out of the sled push. We have Dennis Soli from Germany, Martin Michelius, also German. These sled push times are pretty fast. 219, 238, 246 for Alex. Tobias was 246. And it looks like Tim was a little bit slower, 309. We've seen him go sub 3 on these before, and Michael Sandbach was also back like 310, who was the first person we did see come into the push. I'm sorry. So it looks like we got Alex in first, Michelle is in third, and that looks like Sandbach, who is hanging on into third. So we got Michael Sandbach, and Tobias is right here in fourth. So I think
again, we'll see Tobias. He usually doesn't take it out too hot, so I'm going to say that his effort is still very well managed right now.
Yeah, he's pretty much a tactician here based off his background. He seems to really be dialed in with his personal output. We don't have Tim here's Tim right here in the picture, looking like he's in sixth, which is a bit of a surprise based off of the times that we've seen. Again, he's been unbeaten this year, and he's not managing his rope very well.
Yeah. What I have noticed a lot with the men is like you guys tend to have like a really big group still in this sled pull, where the females seem to be a little bit more spread out at this point, but there's usually a big group coming into the sled pull.
It's probably because the men race dumb and just go too hard and just deal with it. Like, I'm winning this thing. Watch. Yeah. So we have a mixture of it looks like at least one guy wearing gloves.
Blue gloves.
What's that? Blue gloves.
Blue gloves.
That's. Yeah. Those they could be like dish.
But he's only taking like a couple steps before he.
So you can see the way he's managing that rope is how you mentioned earlier. It's in the middle of his legs, so he's tripping on it as soon as he moves back. So he's really huffing it with his arms here, which is not super efficient, especially how much distance he has to go with the sled. And it looks like the top 4 are all in a race.
So do you like using the gloves? I think that you've used them before.
So I need to manage my body temperature with them, and I think you've had something similar with this. In my last race, I had them in my pockets until the run after the sled push. I put them on for the sled pull and took them off after the sled pull, just so I didn't have to deal with them later.
And I don't think there's any rules similar to Spartan. Like you might be allowed to ditch them.
Looks like Tobias is out. Yeah, this is much more like the Wild West. Like Spartan has weird rules where they just want to disqualify you and penalize you for everything. This one, it's like, yeah, you can just throw your gloves off to the side. And I think that it's indoors is what helps. I think Spartan, they probably have a deal with the venue. It's like, hey, do not ruin our nature.
Will not be allowed back.
Yes. So I think here, like I threw my gloves off to the side. I did discard them and I went and just got them later. So it looks like Tiago is no, definitely not. I think Dylan Scott does this too. I'm playing around with wearing like victory grips, some gymnastic grips, because it'll be a little bit easier to breathe. The grip on the rope might be a little bit interesting for that. Just because it's.
Have you practiced with the rope pull with those type of grips?
Just once, so I need to do that a little bit more. Yeah, it looks like Tim's hurting. It doesn't look like he's in control. I mean, I don't say he's out of control, but it doesn't seem like he's being aggressive here. It's a big rest. Tiago,
not for somebody who's never lost a race.
And you can't help but to think that, there's people who will race well in the front, and then people who race their own race, and Tim might be a front runner. And now that he's not winning, it looks like that it's really taking a toll on him mentally.
This is a big race. This is a championship race. And Hyrox is a very mental event. So if you fall out of it, it's pretty hard to stay mentally wherewithal for the rest of it.
Because it doesn't get easier. You're not going to get a reprieve.
It doesn't get easier. And for something like the sled, like if you get stuck there, the people who move on are running. So they're just making like that much ground on you. It's hard to not get discouraged.
So I think our top four right now, it's some mixture between Michael Sandbach. Tobias was the first one done with the pull. They were both right around 250. And then Martin was 257. And then Alex Ronkovic was 305. So I think that's our top four. And then after that's going to be a mixture of a bunch of different athletes because we're going to see Tiago and Tim Vinish. They're going to be a little bit further back, and they're going to be maybe like in 10th or so on there. So they got some work to do.
Do have some work to do. But we also see quite a few different nationalities coming in on the men's side. So we've got somebody from Austria. So that's Ronkovic. And then we've got Germans, French, Switzerland.
It's great to see.
Portugal,
Scotland. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. I like to see all the nationalities.
It's worth noting Alex Ronkovic, he finished second at the World Championships last year. He's one of the better athletes that we have. I think his time is 4th or 5th currently. His PR, his time this year is like a 58:30 or so. So he's going to be someone who wants to win this race, who's been at the top, who's battled with Tobias before. So I think that, I'm sure when Tobias is going to try to make his move probably soon, which is when we see him go is with these burpee broad jumps, at least at the World Championships last year, that Alex knows that he's going to need to respond to it. But so we have 4 different athletes. It looks like that they've kind of separated. So this should be interesting with this many people and running all together.
And it looks like they made a pretty big separation too. Like when you separate on the sleds like that, it's tough. Like you got to work hard to come back from it. It's not impossible. It's definitely been done, but you're working hard.
Right. If you're with the group in the first run and in the skier and then you get dropped on the sleds, I'm not sure if we've ever seen anybody come back after that. You would have to be a fantastic runner and and somehow be able to recover. Because what happens to the really fast runners is that the sled, it's slow and it's inefficient and it takes a ton of energy when it kicks your butt.
Yeah. You're definitely not running the same after that sled. So
no.
For anybody listening, I'll say that coming off of that sled push feels like you might not be able to run the rest of the race, but your life comes back to your legs. It does come back. It just takes a little bit. That's
something to remember for sure. So it looks like we got Tobias, Sandbach, and that might be Ronkovic in third. I don't know.
Whoever's in second, I think. Who do we have?
That's Michael Sandbach in second. Yep.
Yeah, he's not taking advantage of how far he could potentially jump. He's got a very little hop going on right now.
And you see Tobias' jump is nice. It's low to the ground, but it's also pretty far. Like he's doing a good job of not wasting energy jumping really high and kind of bounding. And he's quick to the ground. And I think that's something to remember. This is when you say like in a long CrossFit workout or even in a Hyrox, if you're going to take rest, like a brief amount of rest, are you going to rest at the top? Or are you going to rest when your chest is against the ground? Like what's a logical spot for you?
For the burpee broad jumps, I'll probably rest on the ground so that I've already started my next rep and I'm not waiting to start it.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just a more comfortable position versus you're more relaxed. I would rather rest on the ground than be standing and resting.
Same.
But you have to be careful. Like you don't know how long you plan on lying down there.
I've done that before, split my arms out. Like, okay, this is better. So we can see the difference in the techniques here with the step up. And it looks like Michael is doing the jump up, which again, might be a little bit quicker, but
more
a little bit more energy, especially after things like the ski erg, which will tax your core a little bit more. I just find the double leg thing to be.
But as we said, Michael was confident coming into this race, and he's backing it up right now.
He's right in the mix. He's not backing down, which we do like to see. And Tobias is out. That was a really, really good station for Tobias. It looks like he put on maybe another 10 seconds or so. So this is what he did at the World.
Who do we see in third right now?
I believe that's Alex Ronkovic. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to reload here. See where Tim Vinish was. Yeah, Tim had a 4:46. He was the 16th fastest on the sled pull. So with a young athlete like Tim, who does seem to be a bit on the slighter end, I would imagine he is faster. If we're going to see anybody come back from bad sleds, it's going to be him. So we'll see if that's something that can play itself out as this race goes on.
Yeah, and he'll definitely have to work for it, but it's possible coming from somebody who definitely has more of an aerobic and runner background. Now that like the really heavy things are out of the way, it's more his time to shine. If he's still mentally there, though, so that's the big thing. You have to have stayed in the game mentally.
So how fast do you think a runner should be for this thing? Like at what point is it you're not really going to be able to utilize how fast you are in terms of the time spent in training and just like how taxing these stations are? Do you think that there is a ceiling for how fast you should be, or is it always going to be the faster you are, the better?
There might be a ceiling just in the fact that like you'll see the fastest runners in the world probably can't push or pull those sleds. But there's lots of very fast runners that can crush those sleds. So I think being faster is always going to be an advantage. But yes, there is going to be to an extent. Like you have to be able to move the sleds and you have to be able to move them efficiently. I would say faster is better, personally. Yeah.
I think that's what we're going to see as the sport progresses. That people are going to figure out, like you said, the slighter athletes are going to figure out how to move that thing and still be able to run at a high level.
And things are changing, like in the running and the fitness world. Like people are learning to not be scared of strength. Like they're learning that it can still benefit them and not necessarily hinder their running. Like if it's done properly, you can get faster.
Here's Tim. He looks like he's not having fun. Looking around.
There's a lot of time that he's wasting right now.
Taking some encouragement. Oh. Yeah, maybe it's his family. Sweet moment here.
This is very nice. Oh, do we know how old Tim is?
Hurts my heart. He's under 24.
He's under 24.
He's in that age group where it's like 18 to 24. So this, I believe, is his first season. He's probably still getting his competitive chops under him. With someone, Tobias, who's in his mid-30s, has probably done thousands of races, can stay composed, has done it before, at least in one avenue or another, so this could be just another race where this is a race that and World Championships is a race that Tim probably has had circled on his calendar that he's thinking about in training a lot. So when things aren't going well, it can be demoralizing. I've certainly been there.
Yeah, it's, I've had some rough races myself, and it's tough. But you got to know that you're not out of it always. Like people fall off in that back half and you can push, you can come back. Maybe not for the win, but you can come back.
I think where the value is in this is that when you are in a race and things start to go a little bit sideways, it's being able to create that wherewithal to maintain your mindset so that you can push when it matters. Like right now, he's out of the race, right? So it doesn't matter as much. But if you can continue to put a good effort in without taking these like kind of long breaks where it's just going through the motions, then
we'll have to find out if he continues to. It looks like he might be stepping out.
And that's something that like there's mixed feelings about, right? Like where's your head on something like this? Like if a race isn't going well, so here's Tobias in here first on the row. Like, are you one that is going to push and finish a race no matter what? Or are there certain areas where you're kind of like, if you are a Tim Vinish in this position, are you thinking like, let's save it for training?
So I am, and it wouldn't even be for pride. Like I'm going to finish the race if I'm not about to injure myself because I don't want to miss that workout. That's my workout for the day. Like I don't want to miss it. Like
maybe I'm my language here.
Maybe I'm having a bad race, but like I'm not going to miss that workout. Like I'm going to get it in.
So we got Tobias and Michael, and then I think this is still Alex in third. So I think Tobias has about a 25-second lead on Michael Sandbach at this point, and he looks very efficient, looks very comfortable as he does on the row. So looking at these gentlemen's form here, is there anything that sticks out for you, like how they're going through the motions?
Yeah, if you look at Toby right now, he's long and tall, and he has the potential to be a very good rower, and he's not utilizing. Yeah, he's not utilizing the gift of height that he's been given on this rower.
So you can see how his knees bend almost as soon as he finishes. You really want your hips to hinge forward first, and then your knees kind of come after you finish. So that is going to sacrifice some of his length. Where you see Michael on his side, he might be on the opposite end. He might be looking for too much length. His back is very rounded. He's not keeping that chest up. So we're seeing both sides.
You'll see, actually, I think all of these men, not that I'm anything to toot my horn on a rower, but could probably use a rowing course because they're all like bending their knees before returning the handle.
Right.
Which if you think about that, now you have to go up and around your knees instead of just like a nice straight path. Like you want that chain to stay as fluid and as straight as possible.
So that's the classic, right? When you see that chain start bobbling up and down, it's that you're losing the connection. This is you got a good view of that you're losing the connection to the rower.
We see that from every single one of them right now.
Yeah, there's very little fluid lines. Even Tobias is kind of, because we saw his knees. Michael's is wobbling a little bit, and you want that return to go back almost as soon as possible, and then kind of let the handle guide your arms back, where they're moving it up and down a lot. You are right.
So there's some time that these guys can make up here.
So we have a whole slew of gentlemen. So this might be, how many guys are on this rower at this point?
Race is still very close. So like you said, 25 seconds coming into this rower between first and second. Like that sounds like a lot. It's really not. You can make up 25 seconds in one station.
Absolutely. I mean, just seeing what we saw at the wall balls in the last race, where that made up 2 minutes. So everyone is in this race still. So there could be some good times that are produced at the end of this from top to bottom. I'm not sure what kind of pace they are currently on. But judging off of their stations, like Toby was about 2 minutes on the burpee broad jumps, which is very fast. He was fast on the sled push and pull, probably doing a pretty solid back-to-back effort, and he's out of the row. So that was the question, right? Could he do it back-to-back?
Job that they have too. This is nice. Did you see him hop right on to clean the machine?
Cleaned it right up.
the efficiency. Even know they did that.
And Michael's out about 15 seconds behind him. So he may have made up a little bit of ground on here. Yeah, he is backing it up at this point. At this point of the race, I mean, I think we do see our top two. It would really take a physical meltdown for someone to lose it after doing 5 really solid stations, something either has to go physically wrong um, or they just miss a lap or something like that, because they are running, because the way Michael's running, he's really in the mix right now. And if you've ever been in the mix of a good race, like you kind of know it halfway through, and then you want to scratch and claw to hold on to that effort because you know you've already done half of the work and it's going really well. So I would expect him to be on the podium at this point.
And that's where it comes back to like the racing for your best time or the racing to win. Because now, like, they're going to be managing their efforts based off of each other versus what they could do to get the fastest time.
Right. So I'm hoping they're all slower than 60:35. That would be an appropriate place for them to be. 60:36 is a great
That would
time.
be, unless they already have a faster time than that, and then it's negligible.
Then it doesn't matter. Yeah. Where I think someone who is not in the top is Martin. He has not, or no, he's 15. So we have two guys that are both have not broken 60 in the top 4 right now. So
who are the other? Martin and Michael.
Martin and Michael are both in the mid 60s. Alex Ronkovic has a 58:50 this year. So we're going to see some fast times out of those guys. So Martin might make a jump up this list depending on how things are going. And it's no guarantee that you're going to run faster than 60 on any given day. Like it's a fast time to run. So we'll see how things do kind of play out here. But it looks like Tobias is just back in form. He must just be really cranking on all cylinders when it comes to his training to be able to handle this type of volume. Would you consider doing back-to-back Hyrox races in 2 different weekends?
Yes, actually I would. So depending on what shape I'm going into it. So like if I had been training and the leg fatigue isn't crazy for me. So like leading into Chicago this year, I wouldn't have, just because I hadn't been strength training. So back to back would have crushed me. But if I were doing my normal training, it shouldn't affect me too much, and it would have primed me. Like I usually feel better on my second race back than I do on like that first one.
There's something to be said about the familiarity of a race, right? What it's going to feel like. That's why we see people do better in their second attempts at the CrossFit Open, right? You do it once, you're like, it started to hurt really at like 7 minutes, so now I know that that's coming, and you can kind of.
And honestly, it wouldn't even have to be a Hyrox, just like a race effort. Like if I could just jump into any race before doing like a big one such as this, I would feel more confident going in.
What would be ideal? Would it be 1 week out, or would it be 3 weeks out? Like what's close enough for you to feel it and not so long that you're kind of like starting over?
For me, ideally 2 weeks out.
2 weeks?
2 weeks. Providing it's not like a beast or an ultra.
Yeah, right.
Like if it's super distance or less, yes, 2 weeks out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That if you're going to be doing some sort of simulation, which is nice about Hyrox, is that you can put a simulation in place that will get you kind of close to the race effort if you have all the equipment. So you can do that maybe 2 to 3 weeks. I think that's a fair place for it to go. But Tobias doing it on back-to-back weekends, and here it comes in again. His volume must just be really high.
Yeah. The problem with like the race simulation is I don't get the adrenaline rush that I would from a race. And I think that's also something I need stimulated before I go into something.
So you'd almost race any kind of race, like even if it was like a 10K on the road or something.
Just to get that like hormone going.
Yeah.
Or those.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a good, because your race day is always going to feel a little bit different than a day of training.
Yeah.
So Tobias is not. What's that?
He's not. Yeah, he's just cruising.
Not wavering. We got Michael still in second, and he's moving. Yeah. So he picked up. Michael's time on the row was 3:52. Tobias was 3:57 or 3:59. Let me double check this real fast. Tobias was 3:59, and Michael's 3:52. So he put 7 seconds on him in that station. So he's still bringing it, and 3:52 is a pretty fast row with the transition. So he's coming.
This is one of the stations that they do leave chalk for you too. Do you always stop and take the chalk?
I will. And this is where I think the gymnastic grips would be great. Like if it would work for the sled pull, like having that dowel effect of the grips on this would almost make it not your forearms. It would almost be like traps and shoulders.
Yeah.
Will you chalk up at this point?
I will just like in the beginning, because they'll leave buckets in the middle. I usually won't chalk up a second time, just the first one. But
Tobias is out
I
unbroken.
honestly haven't necessarily figured this station out. Like I've done it unbroken multiple times, and I still have a significantly slower split time on it than some other people who I've seen put it down.
So I
So
mentioned, it's a matter of
I need to run
actually
with it, I guess.
running with it. Yeah. Are you practicing this? Because this is a station that is easy to. So Michael did take a break there. It's easy to just chalk up, just be like, I'll deal with it in the race. Like doing this in training, it's not super heavy. I mean, it's pretty long, but you can kind of just do it. Like you say, you did it unbroken multiple times just based off of like your regular training. Are you spending time running with the kettlebells?
No. No, not even. I think people would be surprised how little specific training for Hyrox I do.
But you're also a pretty high volume athlete, right? So you're able to kind of touch a
Right.
lot of the bases with just your regular
Just
training.
yeah, just with like normal training. Yeah.
And here's Alex. Alex looks a little bit closer to Michael than Michael is to Tobias. Looks like Tobias is continuing to lengthen. So we could have a good fight for the, like we'll see all three of those gentlemen in at the wall balls at the same time.
I've been impressed watching these men carry the kettlebells. I haven't seen I mean, we see a little bit of hunching with this one, but most people are pretty upright. They're not too far hunched forwards. Like they've got a good positioning.
So it looks like we had a change in the gentleman with the blue gloves, whose name I do not know. So if anybody knows this gentleman's name, who is in fourth, he has made a pass on.
There's a
Marks
lot
in
of
here.
changes going on right now.
This is fun. Good battles here. This is what you'd like to see from a championship race. You know, people
Back and
mixing it
forth.
up, pushing the whole time. Yeah, and compelling races in. Oh wow, he passed him back. Yeah. Wow. So we have fourth, fifth,
And
and sixth.
we're gonna see this with the rest of the stations. There's gonna be a lot of changes. They're not necessarily like some of the earlier stations where you come in and for the most part it's like one pass and that's it. It's not a back and forth pass, but you'll see some back and forth passes on farmer carries and lunges and wall balls.
This is where it'd be great to see the running.
Yes.
You know, this would be great because I mean, most of this race is running, so that should be where a lot of the moves are taking place. But we're not seeing it. So Tobias was 124. Peter Schiller he might be who was in fifth. Thomas from the Czech Republic.
I'm reading some of the comments too. It looks like they're on pace to re-break the record that was broken last week.
Wow. I mean, the way Tobias's stations are really, really solid right now.
Yeah.
And his running is his running usually doesn't waver.
I did go back and check some of the girls' rock zone times because that's one of the things that we can see whether or not like it's comparable to some of our rock zones in the US. And so far, the top 3 women that I've looked at all have under 3 minutes of rock zone.
Oh my goodness.
Where in Chicago, the girls at least, we were all over 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think Ryan Kent was 4:30, and ran 57 minutes that day. So yeah, you can see like that's the out right there. We can see the out right on the zone. Like it's 2 steps.
Yeah.
And
the 2+ minutes in a rock zone is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And even if they do make up for it on the course itself and the distance is equal across the board with the rock zone, there's a difference in terms of like your ability to get on the course and run and how you start running versus running through the rock zone.
Your transition time.
Maneuvering your way through it. Yeah.
Sometimes the rock zone can be clean and like there's no disruptions, but I've definitely crossed paths with people and like we've run into each other before because people are going in and out and there's definitely some maneuvering going on.
And here goes Toby on the lunges, looking strong here. So when I'm on the lunges, I am literally counting where I am. I'm not using the course as a visual to see how much I have to go. I know it's going to take me about 100 lunges to get through it. So I count in my head through this and have like places where I might want to set up a break, like maybe after 20 to 30 lunges, shake my legs out and start moving. What do
So
you
we're
think?
watching Toby walk through these lunges too. Do you walk through or do you step in between?
I will walk through when things are going well. If things are not going well, I'm probably taking my time. How about you?
I
Where's your
think I go back
mindset
and
here?
forth. I go back and forth between the walkthrough and the step. My mindset here is like you're almost done, but it also depends on who's around me. So, I mean, if I have to push here, I will. But if I'm if I have a little bit of a lead, I want to save it for those wall balls because you're not going to win here in the lunges, but you can lose, and it's so close. Like you can lose
Mhm.
it here in the lunges if you blow up your legs and can't do the wall balls.
So there's not even a man on the lunges yet. It's been a minute 20 since Tobias has started. So he must
But
be
as we saw
running.
in the girls' race, like that could not be enough.
And I don't necessarily, I mean, we mentioned how Viola was looking on the burpees, like maybe showing some fatigue there. So maybe she was leaking some energy and feeling fatigued for the duration, but Toby looks good.
Yeah.
And like the only station was probably the row that he hasn't had the top one because like he probably has a similar mindset to you where he's like, let me regroup and then hammer this run. Because it seems like he put a lot of time on the runs on Michael and on Alex since the row.
Yeah, I don't foresee Toby falling off, but we did see with the women's race that it was possible, but Toby looks strong. He's
He's been
still not stepping between. He's still walking right through his lunges.
hasn't really taken too much of a break. So he is looking very, very strong here.
And he only has one run and one station left. And we haven't really seen him falter on the wall balls before. So
We haven't.
I'm
And
just
he's
curious if he gets a new record after just breaking it last weekend. And then maybe that is the secret. Maybe we got to do a race.
let's just do back to backs. And he is out.
You can. There's LA. It will be the week before.
We can do it. That's true. We can make it
It's
happen.
possible.
Which isn't a qualifier. Like they're cutting off the qualifying times
In Dallas, which I only found that out last week, actually.
And in the European race, like so we have legitimately one race here in the United States to improve our time. The European races, there's like 5 or 6 left.
Yeah.
After this one. So let's see if Michael can hang on. He's having a fantastic race.
But he has Alexander right behind him, and I haven't seen Michael's wall balls, and I know Alexander has some pretty solid wall balls.
Yeah, he's a taller, stronger athlete. And the person
and I can't see who's behind Alexander, but he looks like he's only maybe 6 lunges back.
That might be Peter Schiller with the gloves. That could be who that is there, or it's not Thomas Verdict because he is a little bit of a bigger, stronger gentleman. So I'm guessing this is Peter Schiller.
Peter Schiller.
Or maybe it's Dennis Soleil. I don't know. I don't know.
And
so we'll
who
see.
did we see in the beginning that was stopping in the middle of the burpees again?
That was who was stopping in the middle of the burpees. That may have been Martin. Martin's fallen back.
Martin. Do we know? Have we seen any more of his times? Did he continue after that?
Oh, I don't know. Let me reload the. Yeah, he finished the farmer's walk. Still in the mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he did get back into it. His family encouraged him.
Oh, you mean Tim Vinish? Let me see. Who actually stopped?
Him. Yes, who actually stopped?
No, he did not look unless he's not done with it yet. And Tiago Luce also is pretty far back who started out there, who was someone to look out for. But no, I don't see him having even finished the farmer's walk yet, which if he's still out there, he's just going through the motions. He's just hoping just can't wait to get done. So but maybe he could go over to the warm-up zone and get a workout in. Maybe that's the solution there. So he doesn't miss his workout for the day.
Yeah. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
So we are now coming up to the wall ball. So this is going to be an exciting finish to see what Tobias's total time is going to be.
Yeah, I think he's got first place pretty locked up, but we've got a race for second.
We do. So let me see if I can.
And it looks like it's between 3 people, not even just 2. It looks like there's a race for second between 3 athletes.
So if Michael is Michael Sandbach, he is doing something he hasn't done before because he's probably on PR pace. So he's must be really on that line of overdoing it. He looked fatigued on the lunges, but he was still moving, so he's powering through it. So
he definitely showed fatigue on his face.
He was showing fatigue on his face for sure, but he was able to kind of get through it fairly well. He did. Let's see. So he did lose some time.
As they just walked through that wall ball area, I didn't see any buckets. Did they take those away?
They should take those away. That should be for.
There's a big debate on all of that. I agree. I think we can get below parallel.
I think as high level athletes, a full squat with a 20-pound ball or 14-pound ball, it should be doable. Maybe for the open waves, I think that's a good alternative, but.
Because I see these boxes in the middle, but they might be speakers. I don't see any.
Yeah, they might be just for the, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, actually, maybe they will slide those out if somebody needs them. And Toby's coming in. So everybody's lunges. Those were a lot of fast lunges that we saw. There was several athletes under 3 minutes.
Looks like he got right into it. He took like a quick breath and then got started on his wall balls. We'll see how big his first set is. It looks like he's about 4 in right now. And then it'll be a good idea to see how many wall balls ahead he is on second place. But again, I don't foresee second place taking him at this point.
No, I think it's pretty, again, barring disaster, which there's not too much that can go wrong here. But we saw with Viola, things did go wrong. So the second and third place athlete had, there's someone on the chat saying maybe under 57.
I was going to say, do you think he can go under 57?
I think it's doable in terms of a time. I don't know what this course layout is like, just how
it looks like. In terms of the layout, it looks fast. Like just from seeing their rock zones, like that's a huge piece in terms of like breaking a record is how much time you're spending in that rock zone. And it looks like they've got a pretty good, somebody's guessing a 56:45.
Wow.
Man, that would be breaking the record by 45 seconds.
So if he is there, we're going to see a lot of athletes under 60 as well.
Right.
Because, I mean, he probably has a 1.5 minute lead.
Which, for your sake, we don't want to see that, right?
We don't want to see that. Everybody needs to slow down. Yeah, take your time on these wall balls.
It looks like maybe only one of them already have a faster time that's in that top 6.
Yeah, like if it is Peter Schiller in there, he has a faster time. There's I don't know. We'll have to do some. We got, and Michael's hanging on. He's in there. All right, second to the wall balls. Like
second.
His time is already faster than mine by like a couple of seconds, by 3 seconds. So that's good. And it's good to see like this type of.
He's not displacing you, but if he gets a faster time here, that's that much harder. You're gonna have to work in Dallas to try and
move up.
Ahead of him. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, but it's also, and this is a move. This who came into third. This is we're calling Schwarzkamp in third. Let's see if that is a name. Yeah, Dieter Schwarzkamp from Germany. So he's the third place athlete according to these chats here, and he has a time. And he's currently
call him by his first name because I don't know if I can do that last name.
I'm cool with Dieter. Dieter's also ahead of me, which is great. But
okay.
But yeah, these
so
athletes.
Who do we have in there that might not already be ahead? What's your time right now? It's an hour 36?
35. Yeah.
35.
We don't need to turn this into.
I would have to say in that course is a pretty spectacular time.
Thank you.
I think Chicago was not an easy place to run.
Rock Zone was long. Rock Zone was long.
It was very long. And we had an extra lap at the end, I think, but.
So Tobias took a break. Michael Sandbach's taking a tremendous break. I don't even see him. Did he move? Where is he?
So this
Dieter's
is
in third. Dieter's this he. I can't imagine Dieter is going to have a good time with these wall balls, considering his height and his form. He's bringing it down to his belly.
Where did Michael go?
I don't know.
Because he's not finished and he's not there.
We've lost Michael Sandbach.
This is not the time to pull out of the race. Like, you just finish it at this point.
And here goes Tobias. Let's see if we can grab this time.
All right. He's a nice guy. I like Toby. I don't know if you've gotten the opportunity to meet him yet, but
56-52.
Dang! First
goes
person to break
under
57.
Wow.
So Toby, for all of you watching, just broke the world record last weekend, and he broke his own record again 1 week later.
So his fitness is on point. A new world record for Tobias. We just witnessed it. Rock solid from start to finish. Every zone was really, really good. And that's something with an athlete like this who might be slighter in stature. We're used to seeing the Hunter McIntyres or the Ryan Kents who are much bigger, more.
So Michael's still gone.
Look at
our second place into the wall balls is no longer doing wall balls, and he did not cross the finish line either. So it looks like Dieter might be in second.
And if he hangs on with this wall ball form, his work rate is unbelievable. This is the hardest wall ball I've ever seen.
So he's doing, if anybody can't see it, he's doing a curl to press wall ball.
And he kind of ends up on his toes. I mean, he's not very tall, it appears. So
he's
long
adding
break
extra
here.
movement for sure. If you didn't think you could use your biceps on wall balls, you were wrong.
Wrong. Being sore tomorrow, I'll be like, wow, big pump. So that's
Yeah, you want to come in?
So I think that is Alex in third.
Yeah, it looks like Alexander is in third place, and he's moving those wall balls better, so he might be the one to.
Hey, Jack Bauer's awake. Hey, bud.
Hey.
Hey, buddy.
347.
347. I don't have his official. We'll go back and look at those after other athletes finish. We just have.
Which is quick, but it's no Miriam's 305.
No. That was unbelievable. Yeah.
That has to be the fastest. I'm curious what Sam Briggs did in that kind of invitational.
The one that in the first world championship?
The first one, yeah.
Yeah.
She went unbroken, and
she's a little bit taller than Miriam, though, right?
She is. So she probably
Oh, here comes second place. That was a move made on the wall balls. Yeah. They're probably in the 58 range. Let's see what we got. That was Dominic Malzahn with a 59.16.
That's a pretty big difference between first and second place.
Yeah, that was a butt whooping.
Yeah.
That might be. I don't have his name on here, do we?
No,
that might be a fantastic
as we were
time.
talking about in the farmer's carry, like so many placement changes are happening in these last three stations. As we can see, whoever like second and third that came into the wall balls didn't even podium.
Wow, that's unbelievable how tight this race was. Let's see, we still got some other people coming in. Alexander Ronkovic was 59.33. Thomas Verdict was a 59.50, so that's a good time for him. Peter Schiller 59.56.
A lot of under 60s.
I know. I think that'll put Thomas on the top.
So that's 5 people under an hour just in this one race.
Then we have a 60.21 was Martin. Dieter was 60.08.
I am super curious as to what happened to Michael.
Having such a good race.
Yeah. Could he have been being repped on something and then
maybe he missed a loop? Out? Maybe he missed a lap somewhere. I don't know. I don't know what could happen. What could have happened there?
We'll have to get some inside information, find out. So first place was pretty far out and away, but second through seventh was very close.
Very close. And we have guys
About
coming
a
in
minute.
still. We have another guy, our 61.25 is ninth. Jeffrey Voisin was 60.36. That's the time that I like. Everybody under that time. So yeah, this was really a fast course. We had 8 athletes under 61.
Eight athletes. And then 5 under an hour.
Yeah. Wow.
And then from second to seventh, it's a minute and 5 seconds.
Wow. That's fun. And this is how this race probably should have played out. Like we mentioned before, there's 8 of the top 15 athletes in the world this year in this race, with 2 others who hadn't really had a great race to show this year, who have been world level competitors. So we expected it to be dense, but the way that they all kind of finished together isn't something that we typically see. You'd figure some people would go out a little bit hot or would kind of die off at the end, with the exception of Tim Vinish, of course, who didn't have a good race right from the start and was the one athlete here who we thought could contend with Tobias if anyone was going to knock him off. It was really a 50-50. He had beat Tobias earlier in the year, but everybody else really ran a good race and kind of stayed in their lane.
But we've seen it. I mean, we've all had a bad race in this event. I don't know if I know anybody that's been able 100%. To crush every single time 100%. Right. So it happens. Sometimes we just get swallowed up.
So Dominic, who ended up in second, must have been pretty close to unbroken too. He's 3:18 for his wall balls. Toby was just around 4 minutes.
It's just
Peter
insane.
Schiller.
That's so fast.
Yeah, that's really fast. Let me see how did Dieter do? He's still out there probably. He ended up with a 5:10, which we could kind of see coming. He came into their third.
Wasn't he an hour 08, Dieter? No,
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's pull up the actual.
So if you're Toby, do you leave this as your last race until Vegas, or do you think he's going to want to prep a little bit more?
I mean, he's in really good form pretty early on into a champ. I mean, this is a race where you figured he'd want to bring up a high-level performance, but probably wasn't thinking this was going to be his peak performance based off of he raced last week. So we still have about 7 weeks until the World Championship. I bet we see him at least one more time.
One more time.
But then that's about, I think he's raced 4 or 5 times already this year. How many races for you in a season do you think would be appropriate? Is it just simply a matter of how long the season is and how much you can space it out in between? Or do you think there's too many?
So, because of the way this race plays out, I don't feel like you can ever go to a full max effort. So for me, I don't think, like, based on the amount of races that are given to us in the US, that you could overdo it. I think you could do all the races and it not be an issue. It's not something like a road 5K where you're putting everything into every step that you're taking. Like there's a lot of effort managing and kind of holding back here and pushing there, where I think you could get away with doing quite a bit of these without being run down.
Yeah, if your training can handle it, right? Like if you're able to kind of do in between. I'm going to pull up the final results here on the men's, and then we'll recap the women's, and then we'll call it. So let's see what we got here. So again, this Dominic with the 3:18 on his wall balls made a massive moving into second. Huge. So Tobias is your winner, and Alexander Ronkovic held on for third. I mean, he's just a gamer. He comes with it. No matter what a championship race is, he's going to be in the thick of it, finishing third here. So
interesting looking at his age ranges too. He just nobody's super young on the men's side.
No. And I've been thinking about that sometimes too. It's like, I think that it just might take a long time for athletes to build up this type of strength requirements and the aerobic capacity to handle all of this work. Like, I mean, I'm sure at some point we're going to see, well, on the women's side, right? We have a 19-year-old who's now proving my
Uh,
point
yeah.
wrong, who's now the world leader. But it seems like there's going to be a certain amount of strength and aerobic capacity that needs to be built up over time. So I see how the older athletes can still compete at the highest level.
Yeah, I think this is a sport that you can probably do for a long time and at a competitive level,
Yeah.
providing no injury, which I find that training for this particular sport, it's pretty hard to get an injury, because the strength training that goes along with it is a lot of injury prevention.
It should be more standard power lifts, right?
Yeah.
Not that they are kind of set. You're not doing a lot of wild range of motion movements like you would in CrossFit, and it's not a lot like, and you're not doing much shoulders, right? Everything's pretty much
And it
uh,
complements any running training you're doing. So
does.
where you might get some sort of running injury if you're adding all this strength training in, you're just helping with that prevention.
And I've also found that because the importance of the machines, that spending time doing aerobic work or even just interval work on the ski, the row, or if you're spending time on the bike, it's less time running. And running is a really kind of damaging sport where people can get injured and overdo it pretty easily. But if you're mixing up the training the way you probably should, you should have some kind of built-in rest for your legs from the running.
Yeah. Provided any twisted ankles, you should be okay.
And then that's another thing too. You don't even need to be on the trails. You could just be on the road. It's no problem. So lots of great times on the men's side. Let's take a look at the women's one more time and recap how we see these times playing out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think I'm going to be pretty close to the bottom of the top 15 now.
I still think you're safe. But would you ever consider going over to Europe to race just to get a guaranteed 15th time?
That's basically what Cole Schwartz did. He has a 60-11 or something like that. And he's like right in the middle where at North American Championships, he was like 62. I don't know. It would have to be coupled with something, you know? And then we see on the women's side, well, Tara didn't necessarily have, let's see what Tara's total time was. We didn't get to take a look.
No, she had a major PR. I went and looked. She was like a 106 something.
She was.
She
Wow.
PR'd by like almost 3 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So she was really in the mix. Okay, let's check out the female total times because we didn't get a good chance to really debrief on that.
Yeah, they started the men's with 10 minutes left of the women's race.
Yeah. Great.
So 106.49. So she's just under a 3-minute PR.
Wow. And I think that these courses are 2 minutes fast. I give a good 2 minutes to these courses.
Yeah. Which, if you look in the rock zones, like it's not even necessarily a sled. I mean, those rock zones were significantly faster than what we've seen recently.
Yeah, there was every station kind of led you directly out onto the course. So the big story here is Miriam coming from behind on the wall balls. Basically, it looked like one break, finishing in 3:05 or 3:08 or whatever we said it was, catching Viola, who had the lead basically from the start. From the ski erg, she was the first person out. And then we had Sarah was hanging around second for a lot of it. And Rebecca,
I think this was a good race for Rebecca. I mean, a 105 is not a bad time. I think that might be her PR. I can go back and look. I know she originally had a 105 and change. Yeah, so she PR'd here too. She originally had a 105.41.
Great. Yeah, and landing on the podium, that's big. Yeah, and then Tara had a great run.
Yeah, that's a good time. That's like, she's more than safe now with a 106.49. Like, she'll be in Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. So trip worth it. And Jezebel, who we thought had a 109 PR with a 107.21, which should put her right in the mix as well, right? Where does that kind of land?
So that's a new time coming in, right?
Yes.
That's a new top 15 time.
That's going to stick her right in the middle, 6th or 7th or so. So she'll be right in that mix as well. So we could see her
But then there was a really big break between 6 and 7. So we don't
Mhm.
see anybody come in until 1:10:41, which is already out of that top 15.
Yeah, it's interesting. This race here, we saw mostly these 5 women with Jezebel above Tara in the actual race itself, and Tara must have run her down later in the event. So, because Jezebel did go out a little bit harder than probably what her fitness was capable of, but she went after it,
And
right,
this
and
is,
had a big PR.
yeah, my first time looking at her age group, though. She's a 40 to 44 age group.
Wow,
Still crushing.
great. Love to see it. Love to
There's
see
hope
it.
for us.
Yes. um, so yeah, any big takeaways? So I mean, will you then put Miriam as the competitor to beat going into the World Championships?
I'd say so. I mean, that was a very stellar performance, not just with her time, but with her like wherewithal of like holding back so much in the beginning because we didn't see her for like the first half of the race. She was not in the mix, and to know to kind of conserve her energy that much and to be able to crush that back half to come in for the win is it's beyond impressive.
It's a great point. Like being so young and still having the competitive ability to race well beyond your fitness levels is very impressive. Is very
It's hard
impressive.
to not go out fast, especially when you see others going out fast. And I know I'm guilty of it. I like to be the one taking it out,
Right.
but it looks like this pacing strategy really worked out for her.
Yeah, great race on her end. So hopefully she will make it over. Which adds a whole different element to the competition is just the international travel because it's not going to be a short flight to Vegas
No,
from
but
Switzerland.
I want to argue that from what I've seen, the women have done better with the travel in terms of still performing than I've seen come out of the men. In a couple of the different sports, I really only follow the sports of people I've met for the most part. So
Mhm.
like the OCR and the Hyrox, but it happened with Hyrox this past year. Like the U.S. women that had to travel still performed pretty well, and
Yeah.
we didn't necessarily see our American men do as well as we would have wanted. And then we saw that with the Spartan World Championships too. Like the North American women went over and still did pretty well. And
Mhm.
I was a little bummed to see where our North American men were finishing.
Right. Like, the Canadians aside, Atkins did win, Lindsay won, Annie was second. The first U.S. athlete, was 15th on the men's side at
Yeah.
in Abu Dhabi.
So
So
maybe the girls just travel a little bit better. Who knows? It's my
maybe
theory.
we have seen very few instances where international athletes have come to the United States to compete in Hyrox.
They
Alexander
were
Ron
supposed to come for that invitational back in Dallas, like
and
about a year
Alexander,
ago now,
yes.
but they couldn't make it onto U.S. soil.
And we saw Alexander Ronkovic he was there, who later then got second at the World Championships, and his sled push, I think, was 7 minutes.
Wow.
So, and like
Pushing.
it really buried him in the race. So like there's evidence in terms of the times that are produced over and over on the European side of things. But then the one instance that I know that's come up has been, double the amount of time it takes on the sled push. You could just see the way that these athletes were moving it. There was no breaks. In the US,
No.
it's like, if you're
Viola
not,
went unbroken the whole time.
she did, and was like, and then ran off.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a problem. So we'll see. So that I think is going to be an interesting wrinkle. And if they keep the sleds or in the rock zones consistent with what they have done in the US based races, how these athletes are going to perform on it. It will be interesting to see, or if they fix it by then and just make it all the same. Because there's no reason why a race in Europe shouldn't be the same as here. Geographically has nothing to
I
do with
think
it.
every year we'll probably see it get closer and closer. Anybody from Hyrox that I've met, like they want it to be fair. I think it's just it takes a while to make changes, and I
Yeah.
think they're working towards it. But
Yeah, it was probably unforeseen, right? They got these sleds with the bumper plates and didn't even think about it. It's like, oh, why would this be slower?
I think we'll see changes like slowly over time because, I mean, they wanna promote the sport. They want it to be fair. I think it's just going to take a little bit.
I agree. So any final thoughts here on the women's end of things?
I'm excited to see kind of like these last couple races leading up to championship, and then I'm excited to see anybody that will be there. So I will definitely be there in Vegas. So excited to see all of you.
Are we expecting to see Rachel run in Dallas?
I don't know. I know she doesn't need to, that her time is safe. So
Yeah. Just to get some reps in.
It's just whether or not she wants to get like an extra race in before she goes. I personally won't be in Dallas. Like if I decide to run in Vegas, I won't run another one before that. Mm-hmm. So it'll just be the kind of long break, and she might do the same. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It would be helpful. I would encourage anybody to like get as many reps in as possible if they can make the travel there.
We only got one shot. We got one more shot. Yeah, and on the men's side of things, Tobias, undeniable from start to finish, very in control to start, and then when it was time to pour it on, he was able to do so. So he was really strong pretty much the whole way through. I haven't looked at anyone's full splits, so looking at what these running splits are like.
No, but while you're looking at that, that's a good point. Like I'm super curious to see Miriam and Rachel go head to head because they both have very similar backgrounds and they're both super strong athletes. So that'll be a fun race.
You would think that would be the main competition. That should be. And I mean, you can count out Viola, but give her a couple more weeks to come to complete health and confidence, and I'm sure she'll be back and ready to rock. But Rachel versus Miriam are going to be.
I agree. I think the race would be Rachel and Miriam, and then Viola might be a little bit off just because her background's a bit different. It looks like these two strength athletes with an incredible aerobic base.
Right. Yeah, so Tobias's running was just consistent. It wasn't anything incredible, but his stations were really, really good. Like a 30-minute run isn't something that is necessarily going to be amazing. This is just like, this person got second, and his run time was 32 minutes. Like,
what's your run time usually?
In Chicago is 29,
which is huge.
40 something.
So that just means he like crushed these stations.
And the rock zone 235.
Yeah. Where yours was probably, I'm assuming
435.
430.
Yeah. So I mean, we can say all we want for that, and a sled push, under 3, and it was 11th. So we don't see very many people under 3 on the men's side in the United States. And there was at least 11. Yeah, there's at least 11 there. Really solid. I mean, look, these runs.
And 140 for the farmer carry is still 22nd place.
Yeah.
That's moving.
Yeah. Yeah, these runs are just not fast. These are not fast runs at all. But he has a 59 something total now.
I think you're going to take him. Based off of what I'm looking at, I think you're going to take him. Let
me in that race. Let's see how it goes. All right, cool. So, I mean, the men's side, it was played out kind of how we would have loved to have seen Tim. This is his first real experience from what we can tell at a race of this stage. So I'm sure he'll be hungry, and we'll see him again, hopefully in Vegas. We do get to see him out here competing with the top guys, because I would love to see him out here. Then, just 7 guys under 61. That's really solid. Or 8 guys. Where are we? 8 guys under 61. So we figured this was probably the most accomplished field assembled on one course, and they really brought it. So from that 2nd to 8th position, it was a race back and forth. We still need to get word on what happened to our guy, Michael Sondak.
I can probably find out for you, but not in time for this feed.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll follow ORM for all latest stuff, or OFX podcast. They'll have it situated for you. Cool. Well, I think we did it.
Yeah.
All right.
This is fun. It's nice to see.
Yeah, it was super fun. Cool, Lauren. Well, I appreciate you taking this time, and we will see you in Vegas for sure.
Yes. So my in-laws still live there, and our baby shower is the next day. So I will definitely be in Vegas.
So a race is like a maybe.
The race is a maybe, but Vegas is a definite.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you there for sure. Right now, Vegas for me is a maybe, but I'm hoping to be a definite in the coming weeks. Cool. All right, Lauren. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm just going to end the broadcast and we'll be hanging out.
All right. Awesome.